lab 13, we're going to just do 4 different parts, and I know 4 different parts sounds like it's going to be long, but this is actually going to be a pretty short lab, and basically I just want you to experiment with the different positioning types that we talked about in the previous screen, and so I'm going to have you start by just downloading the instructions, or you can just follow along to this tutorial video as always. But I'm going to download and kind of go off the instructions. They have some example images in there as well. And again, we're just going to take 4 different files and try out both the static, relative, fixed, and absolute positioning, just so we can kind of see how they look and how they work. And then, of course, I have some materials for you, so you'll want to download those as well. They'll download as a zip folder, and you'll just want to unzip that and then go ahead and open it up. So in here we have, again, like I said, 4 different parts. So each of these parts has their own HTML and CSS sheet. We can go ahead and just start with part 1. So I'll have you go ahead and open up the HTML and CSS in Visual Studio Code. And these are already linked together. If I open up part 1, this is what it looks like. So it's just a really long page with just a lot of filler text. And what our goal is to go ahead and add relative positioning to this so that we can see how it acts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look in my Visual Studio Code in my HTML, and we want to do something to paragraph 3. So I'm going to look in here, and my 3rd paragraph actually already has an ID on it, so I can actually target my 3rd paragraph in my CSS just by going hashtag, and then what did we name it? 3. So hashtag 3, and then we want to give it a border, so border solid. Now if I open that up, you can see my 3rd paragraph is targeted. Okay, then what I want to do is give it that position relative, and then we're going to give it some values to move it around. So I'm going to give it position relative, so now it has that relative positioning. And if I refresh, it's not going to do anything yet. But if I go ahead and add my margin top, I think I did 100 pixels for this one. Let's see, yes. And then margin left, 200 pixels. Now if I go ahead and open this up, we can see there's still a gap here. It pushed that paragraph down 100 pixels and then 200 pixels relative to where everything else is on the screen. So everything else still stayed where it's supposed to be, and then this got pushed over. And that's what that's supposed to look like. And of course I have that image in here as well, so you can see what it's supposed to look like. But yeah, that's all there is for part 1. So after you're done with part 1, just make sure you save your changes, and we'll close those out. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to part 2. So let's go ahead and open up part 2. Also open both of these up in Visual Studio Code. And we're going to do a very similar thing with this one. So for part 2, we want to try out absolute positioning instead. Okay, so we're also going to look for the 3rd paragraph. So it'll be hashtag 3. And then we'll start by giving it a border so we can see it. Border solid. And now if I open that up, you can see we have a border around that. Now let's go ahead and add that absolute positioning in here. So position absolute. And then I'm going to give my margin top 100 pixels and margin left 200 pixels. So the only difference between all 3 of these parts is just the difference in this position right here. So the last one, remember, I put relative here. This time I'm going to put absolute. So let's save that and see what that looks like. All right, so now see how everything is going behind it. So everything else is just sort of flowing where it's supposed to, and then we said absolutely we want this to stay right here. So if I make this a little bit smaller too, you can see, like, as I move the screen, that thing is staying right on top of those other paragraphs and moving with it. So that is position absolute. So again, you'll want to just make sure you save your changes and close out part 2. And then we're going to go ahead and go into part 3. So open those with Visual Studio Code and going back to my instructions here, this next one we're going to do is fixed positioning, okay? So now paragraph 3, again, we want to target. And then again, let's give it a border so we can see it. And let me go ahead and open up part 3. I'll close that one out. So starting just by highlighting that third paragraph. And then this one is position fixed. So we'll do, and then margin top, same thing, 100 pixels. Margin left, 200 pixels. Let's save that out. Refresh. So see how it's on top, but this time instead of sticking with it when we scroll, it's actually staying sort of like this floating box that moves on top of everything as it scrolls behind it. So this is a really cool way that you could actually make certain like floating sticky headers. Alright, so then for part 4, we're going to create a banner with a navigation menu in it. So we want the little navigation menu to actually hug a certain part of the banner. So let's see what our part 4 looks like. So we can start by opening that up. I'm going to go ahead and just close out that. Make sure that you save your changes to all your other parts, of course. And let's go ahead and open up part 4. So this is what it looks like. It's pretty basic, so we're just going to have to design out those links. So this is probably the longest part of the lab, but you have done this before, so it won't be too bad, I can't imagine. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to look to see what our example is. Okay, so we have the banner. I want to go ahead and add a background color to my banner, it looks like, and then I want to build out those links. So let's go take a look at Visual Studio Code. Start by taking a look at our HTML so I can see where all of our divs and things are. It looks like we have an ID for the banner, and then we also have an ID for the menu. So I'm going to first go to my banner, and I'm going to do background color, and you don't have to do it purple, but I'm going to make mine purple. So now if I refresh, we have a nice lovely banner going the entire background of that banner div. And inside the banner div, we also have our menu div nested inside that. And so this is where we're going to play around with the horizontal menu. So I'm going to start by actually just targeting my links. And I'm going to do that with A, and then background color white. So that kind of gives it that boxy look. We can give it some padding. And then also probably want to give it some margin as well. And to set them all in a row, I'm going to do display inline. Actually, I think we want those on the list item. There we go. And then we want to remove our text decoration as well, to remove the underline. There we go. Alright, so that's pretty good. Now remember, the goal here is to move these guys to the bottom and the right side of the banner div. So what we want to do is do a position relative on this, and we want to make sure that we're targeting the entire menu, so the entire menu div. So let's go ahead and target hashtag menu, and then position relative, and then let's go ahead and do margin top. Let's start with 200 pixels, and then margin left, we'll try 300 pixels. So you can see it's pushing it downward by 200. That might be a lot, so let me move that back to 100. And then we need to move it over to the right a little bit more. So let's do 500, maybe 600. This may vary depending on your screen size. So see, I have a pretty large screen for this one, so maybe this one maybe I'll do 1,000. That looks pretty good. So now we have our banner, our nav menu hugging that bottom of that banner without changing the height of our banner. And then that's all we have to do for this lab. So once you have something that looks sort of like that, just make sure that you save your changes in all of your parts, and then make sure to zip back up. You can rename it something so it's not named materials again if you want, so you can rename it something like edited, so you remember that that's the one you saved changes on, compress that, and then go ahead and re-upload that to Canvas.